Hello everybody, this is Danny from Deepsouth Homestead. We're out here in our okra garden today. Guys, we've got rain on and off throughout the weeks, and it just doesn't do any good with the weather that we're having. I'm out here right now. It is 111 degrees right now, and it is 5 o'clock in the afternoon, Thursday, July the 4th. And the crop that I have below me is a hot weather crop. This is okra. I want you to look at this. All of this okra, as much water as we give it, cannot take the intense heat that we're having. We've had weeks on end of temperatures that range anywhere from 105 to 125 heat indexes. And it is literally destroying our crops. Now, the thing about it is some of this is in the shade, some of it's not in the shade. It's not mattering on the okra. But we're going to walk up here and we're going to look at another part of our garden that's in the shade over half the day, and I want to show you the differences in it. Okay, we're up here in our trellised part of the garden that has the black plastic down. It has no irrigation under it. It's just black plastic. It's woven fabric. Row cover crop is what it is. We have some rattlesnake beans planted here, and we have some red ripper peas and one pepper plant. Now you look at the red ripper peas. They look literally beautiful. We have no problem with them. They're doing extremely fine. Our rattlesnake beans, we have battled and battled and battled with them to try to get them to grow. They came up, the rabbits got them first, and then some sort of disease has hit them, and it's literally destroying the leaves on them. We're fighting just to try to get a harvest on them, but the thing about it is they're not wilting like everything else. The peas and the rattlesnake beans are blooming like crazy. It's just that we can't get the blooms to stick on the rattlesnake beans. They keep falling off. I don't know if it's the intense heat that's making the blooms fall off or if it's the virus that's making them fall off. But we're frantically trying to get them to do something here. And they get just as amount of water that everything else gets. But now we have a pepper plant here. We stuck one pepper up here. This bell is doing very well here. It's a nice bell pepper plant. We're leaving it for it to turn colors. This one is an orange one, so we're leaving it to let it turn orange. And you can see here the red ripper peas. We're trying them on trellises this year just to see if they'll do anything. Last year they took our whole field over, so we're going to see how they do this year with the trellising system. See if we can get any peas off of them. One of the things I wanted to mention about this garden is we had a problem with our English peas here. Our English peas came up, started well, the freeze hit them, but then after that it's like a virus hit the English peas or something happened to them. The leaves all curled up on them and they came out right at the end and finally made a few English peas. We got about half as many as we normally do. So we came in, pulled up a lot of the English peas, planted the rattlesnake beans. The rattlesnake beans came up. The same exact thing has happened to the rattlesnake beans. We're wondering, after going back looking at our previous videos, we planted this whole garden in broadleaf mustard and turned it under to try to help control the root nematodes. And we're digging up a little information here and there about the fact that the mustard turned under can actually damage plants. Now, I'm not really up on that. I don't know if it's 100% accurate. I'm still looking. If any of you all know anything about using row cover on the ground after you've turned the broadleaf mustard in, if it locks something in the soil that causes this to happen to the plants, then please in the comments below let me know, because I'm looking frantically. Because if it does, I'm going to pull all this junk up when it's over, and I'm going to till this whole garden up, and I'm not putting anything back down until next year. I'm going to give it time to, I'm going to keep tilling it, you know, just to try to destroy whatever it is that it does. Because we're noticing this is the first year we've ever had problems with anything here in this garden with diseases like this, and it's the year that we put the broadleaf mustard in and turned it under, and it's the first time we've used the black row cover. So I don't know if there's a correlation between the two of them. We're experimenting. We're finding out that we may have a problem in that area. So if so, then I will not put the broadleaf mustard in the garden again and turn it under. I know that because it's really cost me this year. But if it's the black row cover locking it in, and it's not the fact that it's a broadleaf mustard, then we won't do the broadleaf mustard and the black row cover together. So we've got to figure this thing out before we mess around and waste too much of our gardening time. So if any of y'all know anything about this or know any channels that I can look at that describes this problem or have information on this, please, in the description below, leave it for me, because I'm learning some of this new technique stuff just like everybody else, and I really want to know. Guys, we're over at the peppers in the containers. Now they're showing some wilt. You know, the leaves are really wilty. Like I said, it's been very, very hot today. Still very hot. But the plants are really producing heavy. Now when they're producing heavy like this, it's taking in these containers, it's taking an average of almost 2 gallons of water a day per container to keep them up and going strong and healthy, because the sun is so intense. And these are in the shade over half of the day. They get the sun in the morning, and about 12 to 1 now, since the sun is moving over the trees in a different direction, they go into the shade and they stay in the shade till dark. If it was not for that, we would not have any peppers, because probably a couple of weeks ago, the sun was coming up in a specific spot here, and it was setting through these trees here, and the sun stayed on the first 5 pots here all day, and I'd come over here, no matter how much water I put, they would just be wilted and hanging down. And I thought surely I had lost them, but since the sun has begun to move a little bit now again, it's gone back to putting them back in the shade, and we're able to have some peppers, even though we are seeing some problems with them now, something we've not seen in the past. We're starting to see places on them. They start right down at the bottom. They start getting these little places on them. One over here, this one, the whole bottom of it's going bad right here. So we have to try to get those off and get them chopped up and save the parts of it that's still good. These are the big Berthas. We probably won't plant these anymore. Because they are very susceptible to the bacteria spotted wilt that has hit the plants really hard. The leaves are just falling off of them all the time. They're not really putting on that many peppers. I mean, they have a few in them. You see I touch them, the leaves just fall off. And you do see one of our culprits right here. There he is. He's a stink bug. We try to get rid of them as much as we can when we see them. But these peppers, you know, they're just not what we expected. We're not going to probably plant the big Berthas anymore. We're probably going to just stick with a standard bell pepper. We have like 3 or 4 tubs here that have the big Berthas in them, and they just, every one of them has the spotted wilt virus. And we're afraid now that this is going to be spread. This is the Mucho Nachos. It's made it to the Mucho Nachos, so we're starting to get it on that also. There's nothing you can do for it once it hits. It's one of them things that you just have to let it run its course. It's going to probably eventually kill the plant. And so far, we don't see it up in the regular California Wonders that we have. But you see how the leaves are wilted down on it? No matter how much water we put to these things, they wilt down. in this intense heat that we're having. And they're saying that we've got 5 more days of the regular temperature being 100 degrees. I have no idea what the heat index is going to be. It's probably going to be 110 to 125, somewhere in that area. Okay guys, even though peppers are heat-loving plants, and the okra was a heat-loving plant, in the grand solar minimum, the extremes that we're facing now, the plants can't take it, even though they're heat-loving plants. We've learned last year and we've learned this year that if you don't have those plants in a shade at least half of the day to break some of that heat, they're not going to make it. Now, next year, we will be experimenting, Lord willing, with plants on black plastic, irrigation, and fertilize underneath the black plastic to see in the open sun if they will make it, because we go to the U-picket and the U-pickets is in a giant field, there's not a tree nowhere, and they don't wilt during the day. So we're going to try it next year and see if it makes a difference, and if it does, then that will be the future for Deepsouth Homestead. We will be planting on the black plastic with the irrigation and the fertilizing underneath it, rather than doing the traditional farming, because guys, in the grand solar minimum, we're going into what's called an eddy minimum right now. Go back and do your history on it. I'm not going to sit here and talk about that, but it's going to be pretty extreme. And we are wanting to survive with food during that time, even if it means putting it on black plastic and growing it with irrigation and water underneath it. So, and using pots in the shade and stuff like that, we'll be doing new garden growing ways, let's just put it that way, to make it through these next 15 years of intense weather anomalies that we're having. So guys, I hope that you've enjoyed watching today. I hope that some of it's been educational, because that is our intent, is to educate you on what's happening here with our plants so that we can better help you and you can better help us through the comments down below. So thank you guys from Deepsouth Homestead.